bless you all. I want to bring up Ben here, and he has been he's been with us this weekend, and he's already spoken 4 times and been with your kids, and this is the 5th time. And I believe you'll be blessed this morning. Just want to make an announcement that at the end of the service, we'd like to receive a special offering for Ben and bless him from Harvest as he goes back to California. He's got to kind of take off. He's got a 4 o'clock flight in Minneapolis. So, but we have been super blessed. But I just feel to take a moment just to read a little bit here about introducing Ben Figueroa. Ben is a husband and father. He's a disciple of Jesus Christ. You know, one thing is Ben just always shares the love of God, and he really speaks a lot about identity, and which kids really need to grasp who they are in Christ, how much God loves them. And he has 4 children. His wife, Erin, for 19 years. Ben was born and raised in L.A., Los Angeles, and in Southern California, and he resides in Orange County. So he's a school psychologist, and he's done that and been in that position for over 20 years, and now another capacity as a school counselor. And I heard there's 30,000 plus kids under his care with 30 schools, public schools. And so he deals with the trouble, the crimes, the shootings, when they'll call him in and there's chaos going on. He's got to come in there, and he is not ashamed of Jesus, and he's not ashamed of his faith. And so we got to know Ben through Rex Crane. He was here a few times, and Ben came with. And he's like, yeah, I'll come along. I'll come to Minnesota. And so he was so gracious to come to Minnesota. He feels it's winter right now. I'm like, bro, we're in 50s, man. This is we just keep praying this lasts through December. Come in February. And so anyhow, we're just pleased to have and just honored to have Ben. And so will you just please give a Church for the Harvest welcome to Ben as he comes to bless us today. So I want to, we have to, when we got dressed this morning, I had a different shirt, and then something said change the shirt. So I don't know, we got to be in the spirit today. So thank you. Thank you for being with us. It's an honor. It's an honor. God bless you, bro.
God, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me, honestly. This is not my forte, guys. Usually I'm the guy sitting right there helping out my brother Rex because, you know, I go wherever he goes to support him because, like the songs that and this is awesome. Yeah, the worship team was amazing. The youth leaders have been so great, and man, this has been such a fun time. I had no idea what to expect coming out here because one thing that Pastor Mike failed to share with you, that this is kind of my first time doing this. So hopefully I get some good Yelp reviews after this, huh? But no, honestly, like, and you know, I've had a great model in Rex, and he's helped me so much throughout my life, and I'll share a little bit about that, how I met him and how God really used him to transform my life, you know, because I was, just a person in the audience, and I was a troubled guy. Growing up in L.A. is not easy. And so, he's diligent about his studies and writing and his notes and taking and reading the Word and really deciphering things. And, he's been doing it a lot longer, obviously, for 25 years, but he was a great model for me. And so I came with the book, and turns out I didn't need half of it. So I'm hoping that I could, express myself well for you guys so that you can hear what God has to say, not what I have to say, because I'm just a guy. I'm a guy from L.A., and like I was sharing with Pastor Mike and Rhonda and the team, like statistically speaking, I shouldn't be here. If we look at where I came from and where I was born into, I should not be here. So before I get started, obviously we'll start with prayer and believe God to speak through me so that you can have your life taken to another level like he's taken mine, because what he's done with me is simply miraculous. I can't put it any other way. Like, he is real. He does show up, and he does come through in the times of trouble. He does come through to the brokenhearted. He does come through to the weary and to the heavy laden. So, Father, I just thank you right now. I thank you for bringing me here in the middle of winter. I don't care what they say. There was ice on my car this morning, so I thank you, God, for bringing me here to Alexander, Minnesota, Lord, to share what you have put in my heart for the last 18 plus years that I've known Rex and known about you in this marvelous and wonderful way. Because without you, none of us would be here, God. So you have us here. You have a purpose for each one of our lives. I firmly believe that, God. I take it at your word, just like the song said, Father. And I thank you that we all come to that understanding and realization, and we're able to move and operate in what you've given us, because you are our Father, you are a King, and you've crowned us with as kings and queens on this earth. And we thank you, Lord, and in Jesus' name, amen. So, how'd I end up in Alexander, Minnesota in the middle of winter? Let me tell you, it is remarkable, because if you knew where I grew up, and I was sharing some with pastors and the leaders, and I grew up in El Monte, a city called El Monte. It's in Los Angeles. It's county of Los Angeles. But when you go to LA, it's not like here in Minnesota, where you have one town here, a city here, and then the next one is, I hear, 7 miles away, and then 7 miles away feels like an hour, because like to me, Minneapolis is a city, and then I didn't see really much of anything until I got here 2 hours later. So you guys have a different interpretation. So I just want to, paint a picture for you, if I could. And so you have El Monte, you have downtown LA, you have East LA, you have Montebello, West Covina, Baldwin Park, La Puente, all at Whittier, where Rex grew up. Actually, that's how God, he just, when you look back on things, he just amazes you, because he had this all planned out. He says he formed you in your mother's womb, and he knew you, right? So he knew your frame, and yet you're still here, and I'm still here. And by the grace of God, I'm here, because where I grew up, and, and even thinking about this is whoa, Joseph, I grew up like Joseph, because I grew up in a prison, not a literal prison, but a figurative prison, because everything around me was like a prison from birth. I grew up in a house or an apartment where in the neighborhood, every house, every apartment, every structure really had a steel security door and bars on the windows to keep the bad guys out, because that's how bad it was. When I was growing up, we lived in a studio apartment with 6 people, right? So my mom, my dad, and 4 siblings, and a studio apartment. So no bedrooms, no, nothing like that. Just a kitchen, a room for everybody, and a bathroom. That was it, right? And my neighbor, fortunately for me, was the head of the biggest gang in my city. So when I'm telling you, I grew up in a prison, I grew up with bars on the windows and steel doors and gangsters all around me, that was real. And so the expectation in my neighborhood was, you went to school, obviously, because it's the law and it's required, and, but the expectation from the majority of the people that you run the schools and you have to, educate the kids, the majority, unfortunately, are just there to earn a living as well, but just to let the kids, hopefully they do something well. Hopefully they graduate and at least they'll get a job. That's the mindset of my upbringing. And so, but thankfully God intervened in my life. I grew up Catholic. My mom was a devout Catholic, and so we were forced to go to church on Sundays, right? And so you just went, right? You can't disobey your parents. And so I grew up with the fear of God, right? I didn't want to do something bad to end up in hell, because that's what I was taught. And so, unfortunately for me, for many years of my life, that was my prevailing thought. Just don't mess up so bad that you end up in hell. There's this place called heaven, and that's where you want to go, because it's nice there. There's streets of gold. Wow, okay. And so I had no idea what I was doing. And that's what I was, and thank you again for trusting me with your children, because me as a dad, I don't trust my kids just with anybody either, because I work out there in the school districts and the schools, and for you guys that don't know, the schools are a microcosm of society, of what's going around in our area. And so, and me being in the schools, I knew what was being fed to them. I knew what they were being taught, and I knew what they were being exposed to. And I didn't want that for my kids. I worked hard because of my dad's hard work ethic, and that he instilled that in me. So I worked hard to get out of that ghetto, to get out of that environment, because I knew that there was something better. So God put that desire early on in my life. And like it says in Jeremiah, he plans your ways and directs your paths so that you have a hope and a future. That's all I had. It was a hope for something better, because there had to be. I'd seen it actually, because thankfully God did bring some people along my path early on that helped me see what was possible. And so a lot of times with these kids that I work with and the kids that I talk to, they don't see anything outside of their environment. And so when you grow around these hoods, these neighborhoods, right, these poor socioeconomic areas, when you see that, that's what you become accustomed to. And then you settle and you just stay there because you don't see anything outside of that. I think one of these leaders that I talked to before, he said, most kids, they only live outside. They only look 10 miles outside of the radius. And when, like I said, city after city, right here you have a lot of space. City after city is the same, worse, the same, so it just, that's what you get. You get confounded in your mind, and you get those thoughts and those beliefs that that's all there is. Well, how could I hope for more? That's all there is. But there's so much more, because God enlightened my vision. He came into my life, fortunately, before I was too much older and messed it up. But like I said, thankfully, he did bring people in my life to give me a vision to fight for something more, to go to college. Because I heard about this thing called college from a friend whose dad worked in downtown L.A., and he drove a company car. And the only reason his son went to my school in El Monte was because his grandparents lived down the street, and that was their daycare after school. If not, there's no way they would have brought him to El Monte for our schools, because they lived in Chino Hills, which is a really nice and developing area at the time, kind of like Alexandria, real nice homes, and just up on a hill, and you could see things, and it was beautiful. And so God brought him into my life. And so like I started looking back, right, and like, oh man, like, wow, God did that. He brought this person in my life to give me that vision for that future. And so my whole thing was like, well, David's dad obviously was educated, and he got to go, to college and do work for the city and drive a company car. I'm like, whoa, how cool is that? One day I want to drive a company car. And then I saw this man walking around in school when I was little, and he was carrying a briefcase. I said, oh, that's what I want to do one day. I don't know what he does, but I want to carry a briefcase. That guy's clean. My dad would come home dirty, filthy, stinky from all his dead-end jobs that he was working just to make a living and get us by, provide for his family. He's a hardworking man, so he did whatever it took to make sure that we had a better life. Well, he came from Mexico, where they had dirt as a floor. They had, dirt roads, and they had, cardboard, structures and things like that. So for him, being in California he called it La Gloria. So for those who don't know Spanish, which most of you don't, that's the glory. So he felt like California was like the pinnacle, because, man, look at the government took care of the roads, they took care of the streets, they manicured the sidewalks, and they cut the grass. And so he was happy where he was at, even though it was still ghetto. But it was a step up from where he grew up, so it was better, and that was better for his kids. And so knowing that there was something more, that, I guess I got the spirit of that fighter, of the adventurer, because that's what I did. I said, well, if he could do it, I'm going to do it. I don't care if he's got, wealthy family or whatever, but if he could go to college, I could go to college. I didn't know how to get there, but I knew that you had to do good in school. And so that was my only basis, like do good in school, and then you go to this thing called college, and then you have a better life. And then you become a professional, and then you have it all together, right? Wrong. Because you still have your mindset. You still have the same thoughts and beliefs that you were believing before. And so it wasn't until God came into my life that it changed everything. I did the work, so I worked his principles, and that's what I was telling your kids. I said, look, man, the answer to life, it's all right here. The blueprint. This is the blueprint. It has every answer to every problem, every situation. It says the Lord directs your step, right? So pay attention. Where is he taking you, right? If it doesn't feel good, then stay away from that. When it feels good, then that's him. He's guiding and directing you. He's bringing people in your lives. Listen to them. They're wiser. They have more understanding because they've been on this planet a little bit longer than you. Don't reject them and tell them no because they're adults and they're trying to tell me what to do. No, pay attention because they're trying to help your life get better. They might not do it in the right way that you want to hear it, but they do help you, and guide you. And so fortunately for me, I had enough of those people in my life that did help me get to that place called college, that did help me to figure out what I wanted to do. And so, and what I was telling your kids is like, you know, what compels you, what compassion you feel towards other, that's what you're called to correct. And so even if you don't know what you're going to do in life, you know that you want something more. So listen, pay attention, right? And fight for it, you know, because you know, nothing in this life is easy. And so we have to fight for what we want. And God gives us the fight, right? But do we have the might? Do we have the ability to stand and move forward with him? Because, and when you do it with him, that's what I was trying to tell him, because I didn't learn this until I was, you know, in my 20s, late 20s, right? I'd already accomplished. I made it. Ooh, I got a career. I got a little house. Instead, I don't have an apartment. My first, you know, thing that I bought was a little house. And I always, as a kid, I wanted to live by the beach one day. And so that's how I ended up at Long Beach State, only because beach was in the title. I didn't know where it was, but beach was in the title. So in my mind, it has to be by the beach. So I want to go there. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what, you know, calling God had for me, but I just knew that I wanted more. How many of us don't want more, right? We all want more. Even in, you know, a small town, we still want more, and we still can impact more. And so I believed him at his word. I believed what he had to say once I got to know him for his love, because that's one thing that I didn't grow up with. I grew up, you know, beatered and battered and angry at the world. I mean, there was times in high school when kids would look at me, my friends would look at me, and they're like, "Oh man, watch out. Ben's mad at the world again." I guess I just had a look on my face. And now my friends see me and they're like, "Whoa, what happened to you? You know, how did things change for you? You know?" And so guess what? I get to tell them, God changed me. He radically transformed my life, because statistically I should not be here. You know, I've been shot at. I've been in groups of friends that have been doing dumb stuff, getting big fights, you know, do all that stuff. So there's plenty of opportunities for the enemy to take me out before I got to be where I'm at. But thankfully for God, his hedge of protection was around me. And I think it's because I was operating in his principles, because I was living under the fear of God, you know, right? I feared God enough to, you know, to say, okay, God, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what you say. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what you say. You know, and then when I did mess up, well, I went to the box and confessed my sins to the priest, and, you know, did the 10 Our Fathers and the Hail Marys and all that. But I was still living this cycle, right? And not misguided and misunderstood, and, you know, just kind of lost, you know. So I get into, you know, go through college and graduate and get figure out what I want to do. And I figured out what I want to do because what I was in studying, I wanted to be an FBI agent. I thought, I'm going to be an FBI agent. I'm going to go solve crimes because there's so much crime in my city, and maybe that'll help. But somewhere along the road, God took me to a different direction. And he, you know, and I ended up being a volunteer coach at my old high school for football. And I love football, I love sports. And so I thought, oh, that's what I'll do. I'll be a high school counselor and a football coach. I'm like, yeah, that'll be good. I could do that. I could take summers off, you know, spring break, all this, you know, awesome stuff that comes with it, the benefits, right? But then then God brought another guy along my life. So I did what I did. I graduated. I went into the college thing, and then went to get my credential so I could do that. Well, in that credential, another guy comes in my life. He's like, oh, what are you here for? Oh, I'm going to be a high school counselor. He's like, oh, really? He's like, but don't you know you need to be a teacher first? I'm like, oh, really? I don't want to be a teacher. You know, he's like, well, that's the only way you can be a high school counselor. And he's like, well, why don't you do the school psychologist thing? I'm like, school psychologist, what is that? You know, he's like, well, they work with kids with learning disabilities and disorders, and they identify them, and then they help them and create programs and plans for them. I'm like, oh, okay, and I don't have to be a teacher. No, okay, perfect, I'll do that. See? God directed my steps. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know that position existed. But just for you all know, there's one at every public school, because by law, federal law, there has to be a free and appropriate public education for every kid. And so when a kid has a learning disability or some type of disorder, you know, condition that keeps them from accessing that education, they have to be identified and provided with that free appropriate public education through an individualized education program. Right? So that's the government's way. But then God stepped in once again. So here I made it, right? I made it. I got a career, got a little house by the beach. I'm happy. I find my wife. We get married, everything's good, right? Wrong. Because I was still in that old mindset. I was still in that prison. I was still in that poverty mentality. I was still living, striving to get by, even though I was making okay money, even though I was, doing things in the school district, and I had this professional position. But then God came in, and he radically transformed my life. So 1 year into our marriage, we're a little bit like, we're trying to find our way, right? Because you're trying to figure out, okay, who are we as a couple now? Now, not just about me and the way that I used to do things. Now I got a, partner with the girl that I decided to spend the rest of my life with. And she grew up Christian with Calvary Chapel in Orange County, which is a nice area where she grew up. And then she moved out to Temecula, which is even nicer, and, brand new home and all this. Like, she grew up normal, right? I grew up challenged. But somehow we got together and we made it, right? And so through our journey, we end up, we're alternating one Sunday mine, one Sunday yours, and nobody's really growing or knowing, getting more out of God. I'm just still, in that old mindset. And so God, he came in and we got invited to this church, kind of like Harvest, right? A church where they really believe in the Word of God. They really stand on His Word and His power and His love and His transformation ability. Miracles, signs, and wonder will follow all those that believe, right? And so that's the kind of church that we went to. And at first, I was like, whoa, this is kind of weird. Remember, Catholics, stand up, sit down, kneel, roll over, whatever, just, do the dogmatic thing, over and over, and no. But this was radical. And, this one was even more so because now we went into Huntington Beach. And Huntington Beach is like a punk scene, like skater scene. And, like people are, tattooed from the, neck down and, rocking out. And like the worship is like, like a concert every week. And I'm like, whoa, what is this? And it was weird in that sense because it was outside of my comfort zone. But it was amazing in that what the preacher had to say was so powerful and made the Bible real. He preached sermons that were very applicable and relatable. And so that's what, just intrigued me even more. And so they had guest speakers and they had guys like Rex and, this other guy first. His name was Greg DeVries. He was a pastor from Alabama and, with a southern accent and, just Alabama guy. And he told his story about, drug addicts and, Satan worship and all this stuff like crazy. And God transformed his life. I'm like, whoa, that's cool. And then he started doing something really cool. And he started calling people out, like, hey, God's got this, and he says this about you, and, like he's a prophet. I was like, and I had never experienced any of that. And so to me, it was like, that's crazy, but man, it must be real. Like that just, it's baffling, but wow. And it's true. That's what the guide says, right? So we're going to stand on his word. We're going to believe everything that he says. And so I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah. And then one day he was there and he's like, you in the blue shirt. And of course, I looked for the guy behind me, and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "You just turned your head." And he's like, "Oh, you did it again." I'm like, "What the heck?" He's like, "Oh, well, that's right. I'm wearing a blue shirt." I always wear. My wife and daughter always make fun of me because I have the same color shirts all day, every day, and so my outfit doesn't change too often, Pastor Mike. I keep it real, and so. So he's like, you in the blue shirt, stand up. What's your name? And I'm like, whoa, I guess it's me. So I stood up. Again, I'm the Catholic guy. I don't know this stuff. And he says, what's your name? I said, my name's Ben. He's like, oh, yeah, I see it coming. You're like Ben, Big Ben, the clock in London. Your time is coming. You're going to undergo a time of education. The Lord's going to lead you to a different path. And I'm like, what? So I turned to my wife. I turned to Aaron. I said, this guy's got it all wrong. Like, he must be talking about somebody else. He forgot I'm not that guy. Like, I'm not going back to school. Because early on, I realized, in the educational system, unless you get more degrees or different credentials, that's the only way to get more promotions and more money. And I did the math, because poverty mentality. Remember, I said, oh, if I pay for a $60,000 credential and I get $1,000 stipend, wait, the math doesn't work because then with interest, that's not going to pay itself off over time. So I'll just do what I do. I'm happy. I'm working with kids. I'm helping them because see what. God will bring you to places where, again, where your heart yields for somebody else. That's what you're called to correct. And so my heart broke for these kids because I saw them as me. I saw them as little Ben, who was struggling, who didn't feel wanted, who didn't feel loved, who didn't feel like he belonged, and who, was suicidal at times and didn't think it mattered. And so that's what I instilled in these kids. Like, you matter. Your life is worth something. You can do something. Look, create a vision for yourself. Even if you don't see it right now, create a vision of your future, because that's what the Bible says. And this is before I even knew the Bible, right? But now I know without a vision, you perish, right? You wonder and you wander, and you get lose sight of who you are. And so that's been my goal for these kids that I work with now, is to create a vision for where they want to go. Don't just be succumb to the world and what's around you and what you see and what your friends are doing, what your family's done, what your uncles and cousins who are jail, prison, dead, whatever. Like, that's the reality that we work in. That's the reality that we live in. So I'm there like, no, man, I'm here to change that. Forget that and be a football coach one day. But that didn't work out. But now I'm a baseball coach, so it's okay. And so this man says this to me. And I thought, he's got it all wrong. Like, I don't know what the heck he's talking about, but he's a man of God. And so, hey, whatever happens, happens, right? And so what I didn't know was what God had planned. And shortly thereafter, a young man by the name of Rex Crane came into our church to do a service. 3 services, actually. And at the time, they titled it, "This is going to be Supernatural Summer." And I don't know about you guys. And again, given my background and my understanding of God and what, I thought, how hokey is that? Because in California, we have these big events at the Anaheim Stadium that's Mickey Thompson's off-road, motocross and big trucks, and call it what do they call it? Sunday. Mickey Thompson's motocross is like how it goes off, right? And so when I saw Supernatural Summer, I'm like, that's so hokey. Sunday, Supernatural Summer. Like, really, guy? Come on. Come up with a better title, And so, but it was. And that's why I'm here today, because that man, Rex Crane, came into our life, and he preached like I never, heard. Our preacher was good, and he was on a whole nother level. And he made this so real that it really, really drew me in and intrigued me even more. It's like, whoa. And then not only that, then he operated in his gift, because he gave his life to God, a lot sooner than I had. And now God is using him in a mighty way, because the Bible says that these things shall follow those who believe. Miracles, signs, and wonders, right? You will heal the sick, cast out demons, give sight to the blind. All these things will follow those who believe. And I thought, what? I never saw it. I never experienced it for myself until that weekend. And that weekend in July of 2006 changed everything for myself and for Aaron. Because, again, I was living with that poverty mentality, with the fear factor, with the lack of love, even though I was in a loving relationship, that with the lack of understanding of who I really was. And so when he came into our life, he says, look, and I'm going to stick around and pray for whoever needs prayer afterwards. And so at the time, Erin was struggling with migraine headaches. And she's like, well, what do you think? Should I go up there? And my God honest answer was, well, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like, would we lose some time to, because it was an evening service. So we're late for dinner. No big deal, right? And so, that was my encouraging word to her. And so she gets up there, and she goes and gets in line after the service, and I kind of hang in the back because, I'm, just trying to check this out and see how this works. And, I always observe things first and, see what, if they're asking for money, because I don't want to give away my money. But when, like Jake, what you said about tithing, man, that works so well, because when you give to God to the Lord's house, he takes care of your house. And we've been in that situation, and we've invoked, his favor upon our life. And man, we've got to experience some amazing things from the guy who shouldn't be here, from the guy who grew up in the hood, who shouldn't statistically be here. And now I'm living this life that's just, even beyond my own recognition or understanding. And so Aaron goes up and gets in line, and there's a line for him. You guys know how Rex does it. And so then he had a little girl, when I was back there, he had a little girl on the stool in front of the stage right there, and she was facing that way. And her parents were standing right here facing out, and he's walking backwards against that wall. And he's walking, can you hear me? Can you hear me? And the little girl's shaking her head, yes, yes, yes. And I'm like, what? Because I'm walking up, and I wasn't there when it all started. But then Aaron says, look, man, this is real. This is real. And I'm like, what? She's like, look, I got goosebumps all over my arms. That little girl had hearing aids, and now she doesn't. And he prayed for her, and she could hear. I'm like, no way. Are you kidding me? Like, for reals? Yes, yes. She was convinced. She was, in awe of this. And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, whoa. And so then it's the next lady's turn. Again, this is the summer of 2006. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, this happened back then, and it just transformed everything. Now I do hold him at his word, and I use his word in every aspect of my life because it is real, it is true, and it does work today, even in this government, even in this, this country that's going haywire. God's work and his promises are true today because he's brought this boy that grew up in the hood to now be amongst the kings and influence a region, right? Because I became a school psychologist that not only just worked at one school, but then I got a promotion without another degree, without another $60,000 payment to go work out of the district office, over 30 schools, over 30,000 kids, over thousands of employees, and administrators, and right next to the superintendent's office. And he'd come over to our office to come and ask for our advice on things. Tell me you can impact a region. Tell me you can impact a city. Tell me you can impact a world. Because now those kids that we're touching are going to do great and marvelous things. And I'll share you some stories about some that are already doing some great things because they gave themselves to God as well. But the key is, and like I was telling your kids, it's like understand who you are, who he says that you are. So I had them, write it out. What does he say that I am? I do this with my own kids. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Kind of like the video earlier stole my message. I was like, wait a minute, I don't need to say anything more. It's right there. Guys, you guys see this every week, but you got to own it in your heart. I am blessed and highly favored. I am strong in the Lord and the power of his might. I am mighty in the land. All those I ams are true. I have my little boys say them every morning. I used to have to say them to them, and then they would repeat them. Now I just walk in the room because they're up, at the crack of dawn, ready for the day. And I just walk in. I say, hey, boys, morning, Daddy. I am. My 5-year-old could barely talk. He started this when he was 4, I think. I am strong in the Lord and the power of his might. I am fearfully, wonderfully made. I am Christ's friend. I am loved by God. You are loved by God. And so we need to get that in their hearts and in their minds. I have the mind of Christ. He is renewing my mind, to the things his ways, to do things his ways, because his ways are better than our ways, better than the educational system, better than, whatever you believe in, right? His ways have been tested and proven year after year. And here I am in the middle of winter. I don't care what you guys say. There was ice on my window. It is winter. For a California boy, this is winter. And so, his words are true, and they do transform us, and they do make our lives better. He says he'll take us from glory to glory, and I'm here to tell you that he's taken me to a whole nother level that I had no idea that was within my grasp, right? I mean, it's wild, because so then that man, Rex Crane, and he uses us. He uses men, he uses women, he uses children, he uses us all, and we just have to be, okay, God, if it's you. And you'll know if it's true because you have peace in your heart. You know the words, even though they might cut a little bit, they're true because they cut in the right places. They're not hurting you. They're not, knocking you down even further. You're not, a loser. You're not because your family is. You're not a drunk. You're not these things because just because your family was doesn't mean you have to. But then you impact others, and that's what it's here. First, you know who you are because of whose you are. And then you get to operate in his kingdom. You get to operate in his fullness. You get to operate in his power. He trusts us. He trusts me, this kid who shouldn't be here. Like, I'm standing here in front of you guys, and I'm here, like in Alexandria, Minnesota, 2 hours away from Minneapolis. I had no idea how to get there. I got pulled over on the way here, And I knew it was going to happen, too, because that cop was watching me since I got into the car. I'm like, oh, man, here we go. God, let your favor, come upon me, protect me. Please don't give me a ticket because, then that. But so this man, he goes back, right? And he's praying then he prays for the next lady. And again, 2006. How many of you guys can remember what happened in 2006? How many can you remember what happened yesterday? How many can you remember what happened last week, right? This was in 2006 because it changed everything for me. It just changed the direction of my life to an even greater and bigger place that I could even ask, think, or imagine, because that's what he does. And so he prays for this other lady right before my wife, and he says, "What do you need prayer for?" And she says, "Oh, I need prayer for my back and my finances." He's like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Give me your hand." And he starts walking with her up and down the stage like this, or the carpet in front. And he says, "And you're not going to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning gasping for air. Do you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning gasping for air?" And she's looking up at him with tears in his eyes like, "How'd you know?" I said, "Well, his sheep hear his voice, and he tells me information about you, so you know it's him and not me. I can't make this up," because he was flawed and broken himself, growing up as well. And so now he's here, the great man of God who operates in, another level. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. That's impressive. That's wild. That's awesome. In my mind, trying to rationalize these things as a psychologist, And so then it's my wife's turn. And he says to her, "What do you need prayer for?" And migraine headaches. His first response, "Oh, that sucks." I'm like, "Catholic boy, sucks kind of a bad word. You said it in church. I don't know, buddy." But then I said to him, "Hey, well, pray for her back and her neck too. Since we're here, let's just go for it all." Because we've been going to the chiropractor like twice a week since we've been dating. And I recently I'd asked her, like, because poverty mentality, like, "Oh man, when are they going to heal you? Like, we keep giving these people money, but when are they going to heal you? Like, we just keep going for treatments. Like, what the heck's going on here? It's a lot of money." And so he's like, "Let's deal with the headaches first." I said, "All right, cool, buddy. Do your thing, And so he laid his hands upon the sick so that she could recover. He starts praying for her. And then God gives him visions and deeper understanding that I'm praying for me as well one day. And he says to her, he's like, "Yeah, I could see the last one happening." And it happened on a Thursday. And it was around 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And you were panicked because you had to drive. And you drive a Honda, right? What the heck? Church of 400 or 500 people, and he gave her the exact details of everything that happened that last Thursday when she was having lunch with her mom and her sister, and she felt one of those sensations of a migraine headache coming on, and she was panicked because she had to drive back to her desk to get her medication, and she drove a white Honda Civic. I was like, "Are you kidding me right now? Are you serious?" And that changed everything. He prayed for her back and her neck. We never had to go back to the chiropractor. And then he looks at me and says, "Hey, buddy, let me pray for you." I'm like, No, I'm good. I'm healthy. I don't. There's nothing wrong with me, like in my mind, right? And he says, "No, let me pray for you." And the first thing he says to me, that God says to me through him, he just wants you to know he's never thought one bad thought about you. How many of us grow up thinking every bad thought, every evil thing that we've done, and owning that, and then that's the reality of our lives, and then we're just trying to overcome and trying to fight through these thoughts and these feelings and these responses, because that's how we were raised, that's how we grew up, that's what we understand. And the minute he said that, I was a hard-nosed kid. I was growing up in the hood. You have to be tough. You have to be willing to take a punch. You have to be willing to fight back. You have to, you're in fight and flight all the time. I used to have to run home in the middle of the night because I got a job at a burger stand, and I had to walk home. But going through the hood, it's all the homies hanging out, especially in the middle of the night. I had to run through the middle of the street, make them think I'm crazy so they don't mess with me. All the while, I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to get by. I'm just trying to get home because, I just worked. I was 16 years old when I was doing this, and I don't know how long I did it for, and I think that's why I got fast. It's always a benefit to your struggle. Don't despise the day of small beginnings and where you start, because God uses everything, right? He uses everything that we thought, and he turns it all for good. He turns all of our mess ups, all of our messes, and he turns it around for our good and the good of those who love him. And so now I see it. I didn't see it then because I was a kid, I was just a kid trying to survive, trying to make it. And so he said that to me, and it just wrecked me. And it touched me. And I was like, whoa, and then started crying. And I don't cry. Like, I wasn't a crier. But, man, now I know when the Holy Spirit's there, that's when the tears start flowing. And I know he's there because he loves us. And so he started washing me out. He started washing away all those impurities, all those struggles. He started taking them from me. And he renewed my mind. And so I had to do the work I had to abide in him so he could abide in me. I had to renew my mind, like Romans says, right? And so I started doing that. And I was so like just mesmerized by this. Then he said one other thing to me that just changed everything for us, not just for me, but for my wife and I. Because, see, growing up in that environment, growing up that way, you're afraid of a lot of things. You live in fear. You know, I was afraid of God mostly, and then you're afraid of everything else around you because that's just, you know, the neighborhood. And so then he says to me, he says, and the work that I did because of the kids that I worked with, you know, created more fear in me to not have my own kids. And so I wasn't ready for that, but that was an agreement that I made with Erin. If we got married, she said, I just need at least one. And I said, okay, I'll give you one. But I wasn't ready. Yeah, we were just a year in, and I said, okay, maybe I have time. Maybe I could convince her otherwise. I don't know. But then the next thing that he says to me is that you're going to have a son, and he's going to be this, this, and this. And then we wrote it down, and I was like, whoa. And that lifted another aspect of my life instantly. Like, whoa, okay, God said it, so I guess it's going to happen. You know, God said it. So I stood on his word. I stood on his trust in me because I didn't trust myself. And so God said it, so now it's going to be okay. And so time went on, and, you know, like I was just still, like this change has transformed everything for our lives. So obviously when you're interested in something, when you like something, when you find something, some pleasure in something, you're going to go after it even more. You're going to go after it even more. That's my hope for you guys coming to this church, that you're not just listening to good messages. And Pastor Mike and Caitlin have done a phenomenal job. I watched the stuff that they say, and it's like, whoa, but you have to take it into your heart and let it really work in you and through you, because he just doesn't empower you for you. He empowers you to empower others. And that's what I got from Rex, and that's what I got from, you know, the pastors that I've been around. You know, it's like, it's a great message. It is. It's the good word, right? It's the good news. But it's not just the good news for us to keep to ourselves. It's the good news to go share with everybody else. And in the public school system, you know, I did this, and I'm still doing it. Everybody knows. Like, man, oh, he's that crazy Christian guy. But I'm not like, oh, Jesus this and Jesus. I just go love on people. And then they see the results. I just go love on people, and then they see the results. They see God move in them, because I serve now. I don't fear God. I love God, and he loves me, and I love his power, his wisdom, his understanding, and I use that everywhere I go. So I've been able to impact regions. I've been able to impact my schools. I've been able to impact people that now impact other people and other students. So I took it and I ran with it. And obviously you do it in parables because, you preach the word of God. I don't even know the verses that well, you know, but I know it's in there, and I'll find it because I know the word enough to know what it says, and then I'll just Google what verse it is. You got to be resourceful, right? Fake it till you make it. And so, but I know it. But see, that's another testament to his word. It's true. It's life. It brings hope. It brings love. It brings salvation. It brings health. It brings joy. It brings everything good. Honestly. And that's why I'm here, guys. And that's why I took this opportunity to come and share, obviously because I care about kids, because I was a broken kid. I was a messed up kid. And so any chance I get, the kids that I get, it was really cool. And you know, I was a little nervous, like, oh, shoot, they want me? Like, no, I'm not that guy. You guys got Rex's number, right? I'll give it to you. But fortunately, through that, because we kept searching, we kept following Rex around, and he noticed. Because God highlighted us to him, because this doesn't happen by accident either. He noticed, and then he calls me out one day. He's like, hey, man, where are you from? I've seen you around. And it was summertime, so in the summer break, I was like, shoot, we were at every meeting possible that we could find, you know. So when you truly get hungry, you go and you find what you're looking for, right? When you're really, you know, thirsty for something, you go find that drink that satisfies you. You go find the thing that you love and crave, and then just take more and more of it. And so that's what I became. I became, you know, like a student. Like I would take my notebook. I have hundreds of notebooks written of his messages, because I know it wasn't just Rex. It was God speaking through Rex. And so, you kidding me? Like, look what he already did. Oh, I want him here to do more. I learned about Psalm 5:12. The favor of God surrounds you like a shield. And he told the stories. I'm like, oh, shoot, Aaron, the favor of God surrounds us like a shield, girl. You know, we had our little girl first, which that one threw us because I told him, like, what the heck, man? You said we're having a boy. He's like, yeah, God didn't tell you it was going to be the first one. Here's a guy who didn't want to have any kids. Now I had a daughter on the way, right? And then she was born, and she was amazing. And then the boy was coming, and the boy was coming, and the boy was coming, and he was here, and he was about to be born, and we needed a bigger place because the little place I bought, thinking when I was, before I was married or anything, I just wanted to have a place for a family. I didn't want them to grow up in a hood. I didn't want to grow up in a neighborhood where, bars in the windows, steel doors everywhere you went. I wanted them to have a home. I didn't want an apartment. I wanted a home. And so I found a little house a mile from the beach, and for some reason, the favor of God, even back then, before I knew him, was working for me. And I got this house. It was actually a little duplex that I got. And so I was able to figure it out. I'm like, oh, if I live in that one and rent that one for, that much money, then I'll be able to afford it. Because naturally I couldn't afford it. But then, with that okay, that makes sense. So I got that. I took the steps to prepare for what was coming, even though I didn't even know it was there. I didn't even know it was capable. I didn't know I was worthy of love or, somebody partnering with me because of what I was thinking about myself. And so, the favor, right? We learned about the favor of God, and I write it down, and then we start praying about the favor of God, and we're going to have our boy. He's on his way, and so now we're running out of room because we had a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and these kids come with a lot of stuff. We had no idea. I'm like, man, they take up everything. And so we saw this house, and at the time the market was high, and we could only afford so much. We didn't want to be house broke, what they call it, right? And so we went and took a look at this house, and it was a bigger house in a nicer neighborhood. And we're like, whoa, okay, this is nice, And so the listing agent was manipulating the system and offering the house at different prices just to get interest and just to get people to come and take a look. And we happened to catch it when he offered it down here. And we're like, shoot, we can afford that. So we went in thinking, yeah, guns a-blazing, full offer, we're ready. And then they came back and laughed at us. And they said, are you joking with this offer? I'm like, what are you talking about? That's what, I was just, he's just doing that just to get interest. And so we're like, when we went to go look at the house, luckily our real estate agent was also a believer. He's like, man, let's just pray over this house. And we prayed the favor of God. And that was in November when we offered on this house. And it wasn't until March that they came at him every few weeks. Hey, your client's still interested in this house. Let them come up. Tell them to come up. And we're like, no, we can't. And we hold fast, and we hold fast to God's word. His favor surrounds us like a shield. And sure enough, in March, they said, your clients are still interested in this house. By then, we've seen hundreds of houses. Which one? We don't remember. Oh, the one on Marber, the one, right by the college. And like, yeah, deal done at what we asked for. And they gave us the keys. In 15 days, it closed. It was, so God's favor, God's word works. Even to a guy who doesn't really understand it and know it, But I declared his word over our life. I declared his favor over my life, over my wife's life, over our kids' life. And here we are today in 2024 in Alexandria, Minnesota, talking about his goodness and showing you. Because like Joseph, he went from the pit, from jail, from prison, to the king's palace, the right-hand man of the king. Here's the kid who grew up in a prison, is up there. The right-hand man of the superintendent, assistant superintendent of the school district came into my office to ask me for advice, to ask me what I thought, to ask me for my opinion. Like, whoa, it's wild, guys. It's wild. And in the meantime, I'm able to impact so many others and so now I have access to all 30 schools in the district, all 30,000 kids. Whenever there's a crisis, whenever there's a situation, they call Ben. And my old boss, he said it best, and I just attribute it all to the Holy Spirit working in me and through me and helping me because I still need his help because a horrific situation, a kid dies, and I've got to go in there and comfort people. What do I know? Yeah, you're a psychologist. Oh, yeah, that's natural terms. Psychology, all they did is take this book and remove God out of it and remove his power. So I go in with his power to really comfort people and bring, healing to the brokenhearted. Right, in these situations. And so I know that. I've, confessed that over and over. I pray everywhere I go. When I go to this situation and that situation, I'm praying on the way. I'm praying. But God, go before me. God, stay by my side. God, when I'm weak, you're strong in me. Use me, God. Let me say the right things to these kids. Let me say the right things to these people who just lost someone that they loved, or who don't understand the situation why a kid would take his life, right? And so I walk in with that understanding and that knowing, and so I walk in with peace. And so my old boss, he said he's introducing this new lady to our office who's one of the new assistant secretaries or something like that. And he's explaining, oh, that guy does that, and that guy does that, and that guy does that, and that guy does that. And Ben, I don't know how he does it, but everywhere he goes, he just makes people feel better. And I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus. So that's who we are. We're bringing Christ on the scene. We bring Jesus on the scene. We bring Holy Spirit on the scene wherever we're at. And it helps comfort people. It helps transform people. It helps, wherever there's misunderstanding, he brings that knowledge and that wisdom. And so like my impression or my prayer for your kids and for you all is like, hey, get to know him. Trust him. Bring him on your scene. He made you mighty in the land, just like he's made me mighty in my land, right? Now I get to influence others because of him. He's trusted me because I yielded to him. I said, God, you use me. Use me in the way that you want to use me, right? And Rex was a great model to me. Other pastors are great models to me, but we're all fearfully and wonderfully made. We're all unique. We're all, have our own skills and talents. So he uses me different from them. And that's cool. I'm okay with that because I'm me. I'm not trying to be him. If he was here right now, he'd be running around all over this place. All right? But I just let him use me. And people see that. And people trust me. And, because of my yieldedness, because of my willingness, God's entrusted me. And he's used me in so many different ways. I've had people come to me who didn't know God. I had a teacher once who came to me. And she was, in a really bad state in her life and her marriage. And she was a teacher, and she was just struggling. And she came into my office one day, and because after that moment, I didn't care who was in front of me. I didn't care what the law said or what they thought they said. I was going to talk about Jesus, whether they wanted to hear it or not. Look, God's the answer. He has every answer to every problem right here in this book. And I wanted to share that. And he does heal. He does perform miracles today. And I've seen it. You want to doubt the psychologist? Come on, I got a degree. Right? But this transformed my life. And so she comes in, and I'm at my desk, and I'm writing a report, and watch how awesome this is, because, again, he'll use you wherever you're at. And she comes into my office, and she's at her wit's end, and she's ready to file for a divorce and be done with her marriage. She's got 2 kids, and she's just finished. And she comes in, and she's tried counseling, she's tried the seminars and all this stuff, and she says, okay. She sits down. I'm ready to try this God thing. And she says, I'm sitting here typing a report, and I stop. Oh, cool. He's not a thing. He's real, but show up to this meeting. And she's like, okay. And she did. She trusted, right? Because she'd seen the results, and she's seen what I was, she was interested in what I was talking about. And she came to a meeting, and God touched her and spoke to her and healed her. And so what did she do? Brand new believer, probably 27 years old, never knew anything about God, wasn't raised in the church, wasn't raised with parents who took her to church or any understanding, and she became a Christian. She gave her life to the Lord. She, who is brand new, months in, says, hey, Ben, I'm going to start a prayer meeting in my classroom every Monday. If you can make it, come over. And at that time, I had to split my week between different schools. So I'm like, I wish I could, but I can't. But I'll be praying on my way to work for you. And she didn't know anything. She started studying. She started reading. She started gaining an understanding, a wisdom, a knowledge that confounded others. Her life was transformed. She started a prayer meeting. I had a seasoned Christian guy come to me and say, whoa, Ben, you hear about Allison? I said, yeah. Isn't that cool? He's like, yeah, I feel bad. I've been a Christian all my life, and I didn't even start that. Said, hey, you better step up your game, man. Some of us, we think, okay, just, we're saved, we're going to heaven. Cool, that's cool, great, happy for you. What are you doing for others? What are you doing where you're at? Where you influence others so that they could join you, so that you could see them in heaven, so that you can, share bread in heaven at the feast that He's created for us. What are we doing with what he's given us, what he's entrusted with us? I know I'm too convinced not to, not to let somebody else tell society say God's not real. Yeah, you're fooled. Sorry that I'm not going to be mean to them. It's like, oh, okay. But eventually they come around because they see what he's done in you, and they want that for themselves. They want that for themselves. I had a season, so then I got a promotion to work at a district office, and my boss at the time, he was the sheriff. He was like the district sheriff. He's a tough, gruff guy. And his goal and his vision for him at that moment was, once retirement comes, retirement's my key. Oh, that's when life's gonna be good. I'm like, here I'm the young buck, what do I know, right? I'm like, dude, we're here now. Let's get after it. Let's help these kids. Let's help transform their lives. And he was, he respected that and honored that, but he was like, oh man, you don't get it. You don't understand. You're too young. You're still naive, buddy. I'm like, I don't think you get it, bud. He's real, and he will operate each and every one of us. And I'll try to make a long story short, but eventually after years of spending time with me, and we had to ride together in the car every morning, and I would just, hey man, how was your weekend? Oh man, it was awesome. I went with Rex to Alexandria, Minnesota, and this is what happened. This person got healed. And what? He's looking at me like I'm crazy. But then when the time comes, who did he call? Hey, Ben, my daughter-in-law, she's in the hospital. She's got this rare form of cancer, and she's got 2 kids. Do you think you could pray for her? And I said, yeah, buddy, no problem. I'll call Rex, and we'll go over there. He's like, I think you could do the same thing. I'm like, oh, wait. I'm not the prayer guy, in my mind, right? I'm like, but you know what? Who are we to say no? God gives the invitation, so we give our limitation. I said, let's go. I said, God, give me the words. God, we stand on his word. God, 1 Peter 2:24, and that's all I knew was read, lay hands upon the sick, they shall recover. 1 Peter 2:24, by his stripes she was healed. By his stripes you were healed. It's past tense. God already did it. He took it on his cross when he went to the cross. So you're healed. Just own that. Really put that in your heart. God healed you. Trust him. Just believe him. Some time went by. He calls me up. Ben, you're not going to believe it. What is it? Sheldon, she's out of the hospital. She's free and clear. So obviously I told Rex about it. I always call Rex because he's my mentor. He's my best friend. He's he's helped me in so many ways. But he's modeled it for me. So you have to follow the models that motivate you. You have to follow the examples that are set before you. God's brought these people in your life for a reason. Don't discard the time of small beginnings, use that as a time to learn and do more and be more, and then go out there and do it. Go out there and do it. I do it all they do. I do it with kids. I've seen kids' lives radically transformed because they trusted and they allowed me to speak into their lives. One of the pretty remarkable ones was this little boy named George. He's a kid who grew up in the foster care system. 6 years old, he gets taken away because his mom is dead, and he doesn't know his dad is out of the picture in prison or jail. And so he gets taken away by the foster system because his mom got killed by her then boyfriend, and on Christmas Eve. And I met George when he was 18 years old. And his only goal was to graduate high school because nobody in his family had graduated high school. And so I was in charge of these students as well. And so I went to talk to George, like, hey, man, how can I help you? I want to be here for you. I know you got, the system behind you, but good luck getting a hold of them, right? I'm right here. I go to every school. You let me know what you need. I'm here for you. I said, but one thing, your goal is to graduate high school, but you're not even showing up to your economics and government class, which is first period, and you need that to graduate. He's like, man, Mr. Ben, you don't understand. I have to take 2 buses to get here every morning. So by the time I get here, the class is over. I said, all right, George. I said, I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to go stick my neck out for you, but you have to follow through and you have to do your part. I'll do my part, you do your part. Deal? What is it? I'm going to go get you a ride every morning to school. I'm going to beg the school district. I'm going to go fight for you. So sometimes we got to fight for somebody else when nobody else will, right? Somebody else, they feel abandoned, they feel alone, they feel rejected and discarded, but we got to fight for them because we have the love of God inside us. And so I said, George, I'm going to fight for you. You better not let me down, man, because I'm going to stick my neck out, and it's going to cost them money, and they hate wasting money, especially on kids that look like you and me. And so I went to them. I said, hey, You guys do everything else for these rich families who have lawyers and advocates and fight for every, service imaginable, but yet I need help over here for this guy. I need a ride. Oh, we can't do that, Ben. He's got a bus. Bob. No. He can't get there because of the bus. He's got to take 2 buses to get to school on time. And unless he starts his day at 4 o'clock in the morning, you try to start your day at 4 o'clock in the morning, get to school by 8. You're not going to do that, right? So I fought for him, and they gave me what I wanted, the favor of God. They sent a taxi for him every morning. And I was shocked myself. But I was grateful to God. And so we got a bus. We got a taxi for George. George, you better not let me down, buddy. You better show up, and we're going to get you graduated. Okay, Ben. Yes, sir, Mr. Ben. I'll do it. And he did it. And he graduated. And he's 18 years old, and he's now off. You're an adult. Go do it on your own. Oh, man. Now, hey, George, now that you're an adult, not that you're out of the school system, now I can give you my personal cell phone number. You call me if you need anything, all right? Just don't call me asking for money. I'll help you wherever I can, but I'm not going to give you money because I don't know what you can do with it. And so you got to be wise. So he's like, okay, all right, Mr. Ben, here's my personal cell phone number. In the middle of that summer, he calls me up. He's like, hey, Mr. Ben. Yeah, George, what's up? He's like, can you help me? I said, absolutely, George. What do you need? As long as it's not money. He's like, I need food. I'm out of food. I'm like, okay, buddy, I got you. So I took my son Isaac, and the one that Rex had prophesied about was here with me riding in the car seat so I could take the carpool lane to get to him, or else it'd take me over an hour to get there. 20 minutes away. A 20-mile drive would take me over an hour if I didn't have a carpool buddy. So I took Isaac. I said, Isaac, we're going to go help this boy. So I was the example to my sons, to my daughter, of what God can do through a broken man, and now what he could do through you. Imagine that if you grow up in this. If you know who you are because of whose you are, he'll use you in a mighty way, even at a young age. So we're going to go help George. We went and got George some food, and George happened to live in a city that was next to the city where we went to church every Sunday at that time. I said, hey, George, if you want, I'm here every Sunday. And we go to church, and then we go get something to eat because there's a big area right here with a lot of different restaurants. If you want, no pressure, but we're here. And George hadn't disclosed too much to me about his life yet. And so he said, nah, I'm good. I don't believe in God. I'm like, okay, no problem. Come get something to eat. No, I'm good. Thanks, Mr. Ben. All right, cool. Some time went by, and he calls me again. Hey, Mr. Ben, is that offer still open? I'm like, which one, George? You turned me down so many times. He's like, to go to church with you and go to eat. So slowly, God, you plant the seed, God will water it. God will, flourish it, right? And so I said, yeah, George, of course, anytime. What changed your mind? You rejected me so many times. You didn't even believe in God. Well, I was at the bus stop. Now he had to ride the bus again. I was at the bus stop, and there was a flyer about a Victory Outreach Church. And these are where they reform gangsters and former, inmates and stuff like that. And it's all gang style and stuff. And so there's a flyer at the bus stop. A flyer at the bus stop had a picture of a lady and the homies around her, but the woman reminded him of his mom because she was drawn, and he's like, she looks like my mom. I think my mom's trying to tell me something from heaven. I said, man, George, a good thing you're a good mama's boy, even though you only knew her for 6 years of your life. And so he joined me to church. But first, he gave me one thing that I needed to do for him. He said, Mr. Ben, will you go with me to the cemetery first, and then I'll go with you to church to go visit his mom. I said, George, I'll be honored, man. Thank you for trusting me. Yeah, I'll pick you up. We'll go to the cemetery, then we'll meet my family at church. We go to the cemetery, and I can't help but notice on the headstone the date she came and the date she exited. And George never told me the story. She died on Christmas Eve when he was 6 years old. And that broke my heart because your little boy lost sight of who he was and was mad at God for all these years because he believed a lie. So don't believe the lies of what happens to you, right? Believe of what he says for you. And I asked him, now that we're by ourselves and out there at that cemetery, I said, George, I don't mean to pry, but you've never shared the story. What happened to your mom, buddy? And he says, my stepdad was angry, mad, drunk. He came home, was in a rage, he got in a fight, and he choked her out and killed her. And it broke my heart. But then it brought me wisdom and understanding. I said, George, I understand why you're mad at God. I think you're mad at the wrong person, at the wrong one. And he says, what do you mean, Mr. Ben? I said, don't you know the Bible says that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy? The enemy used that man's anger, that man's rage to kill your mom, destroy your faith. And he stole everything else from you, your family, everything. And so you're mad at the wrong person. God loves you, man. We go to church. He's left kind of like dumbfounded. I showed him the scripture and everything. And we go to church, and he says, and he's there, we're sitting down. It's a Christian church, so he grew up Catholic. He didn't, again, stand up, sit down. None of that going on here. Just stand up and worship and then listen and receive. And it was a guest preacher that day, this man by the name of Robert Madu. And what did he preach on? The enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. He looked over at me. I looked over at him like, no, man, I don't even know that guy. It's my first time hearing him. So that's God talking to you, buddy. That's God wanting to restore everything in your life. Don't let the enemy fool you. Don't let the enemy confound your thinking and your reasoning, because it's he's the one who came to destroy your life. Why don't we let God restore it and restore, everything about it, because he says he'll make all things new, right? He'll transform your mind, he'll transform your life. If you allow him to, he'll make all things new. George Now is a prominent tattoo artist in California, in Orange, California. He runs a tattoo shop, and he's tattooing, celebrities. He's tattooing basketball stars, NBA guys, all because after that moment, he gave his life to the Lord. And everything that he always wanted growing up, a family, someone to love him, someone to take care of him, God brought to his midst and brought him a young lady. They got married, they have a daughter, and now they have another child on the way. So God does miracles in our everyday life. He does restore. He does heal. He does do great and marvelous things. And so it's his love that will transform us. It's his love that will carry us through. And then his power and authority come next. And I know Pastor Mike's preached on that. And so we got to listen, pay attention, and then operate in it. And so before I go, I know it's running out of time, I want to share with you guys one more story just to make it real, because God used this guy from El Monte, California, Los Angeles, in the ghetto, in the hood, who shouldn't be here statistically speaking. They were just, my high school counselor was just happy if I graduated. That was a notch on his belt. He did something good. He got that kid to graduate and just have an ordinary life. But here I am living an extraordinary life because of what God did. Not man did, but God did. And so another example will be, we're going to show you this video of what God did. So I was told to go respond to this school because a little boy dropped dead. He had a massive heart attack and he was down, and he had to be revived. He had to be paddled twice by an administrator after 5 minutes of nobody attending to him, because teachers got froze and got scared. And so it wasn't until an administrator came who doesn't believe in God, who now hopefully believes because he's seen it a few times now. And he started paddling him. And then the ER came, or the ambulance came, and they paddled him a couple more times. And they got him to the ER. They stabilized him. And then he coded out twice there, and they paddled him again. And so he went 5 minutes, 48 seconds with no oxygen. And he got paddled 6 times. And now he's in a medically induced coma. And that happened on a Tuesday. And so immediately I get called. I go to the school on my way. Rex, yo, bud, we got to pray, because we're 2 or more gathered. God is there in our midst. And I don't know where these people believe or what they don't believe, but I know who does, and I'm connected to them. And so we're going to pray, and we're going to believe God for something great, because if that little boy dies, that mom loses her 13-year-old son, that school is traumatized. Those kids who saw, those teachers who froze, guilt-ridden shame will carry them for all the rest of their lives, right? I should have done this. I should have done that. How many of us lives with our should-haves instead of I will and I am, right? And so starting today, we could live with that I am. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am blessed and highly favored. I am strong in the Lord and the power of his might, even when we don't feel it, even when we don't see it, right? We stand on his word. And so we prayed, and that happened on a Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, Rex was going to do a service down in San Diego. So I drove over an hour and a half to get there, because I felt like I needed to be there, because this boy, the prognosis was not good. And so I get to that service, and I didn't message Rex beforehand. I didn't. I just said I'm coming, because I knew I had to be there for that boy. How many of us have to need to stand in the gap for somebody else? Sometimes we have to fight for somebody else's life because they don't understand, or maybe they don't know, but we know, and so we can't just sit back. We can't just say, "Oh God, You take care of it. You know, sometimes we got to move, right? He says to move, and so we move him. And so I drove down, and he's in that environment because I know about the atmosphere and the Holy Spirit being present, and good things can happen because I'd seen it over and over and over. You know, we're living in the book of Acts, you know, every time we go, wherever we go. And so I go down there, and I said, bud, we got to pray for him right now. And I hadn't talked to him earlier. And then he starts praying, and he starts releasing a word. And a word was like, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is going to be so good. Those people are going to be so dumbfounded. It's going to be awesome. God's going to show up in a mighty way. And sure enough, he prayed. They were supposed to pull the plug on the little boy on Friday, and then you guys can see what happened. So I'll leave you with that. Father, I just thank you for what you're doing in us and through us, God. I thank you for your miracles follow us all the days of our lives. I thank you that miracles and signs and wonders will follow those that believe. I thank you that we operate in your fullness and your strength everywhere we go, Lord. No matter if it's here, it's at work, it's at school, what have you. And one more thing, guys, I would like for you guys to go love on this guy that I met I think it was yesterday, at the Jimmy John's. His name's Frank, and his wife is struggling with some kind of uterine cancer. And so, again, we just started talking, and he started sharing because he knew God's presence was there, and I was loving on him and praying for him. And so, and I invited him today, but he had to work because he's got to work 2 or 3 jobs in order to make the ends meet. And so if you guys have a moment, go down and meet Frank because he's a cool guy. He's a little wild, a little, rough around the edges, but, man, he's got a heart. And so, Father, I just thank you that everywhere we go, Lord, we see you, and we see your presence, we see your beauty, and we step in as your conduits, as your ambassadors, as your kings and queens that have dominion and authority over all the earth that you've given us, Lord. I thank you for it, Father. I thank you for your presence. I thank you for your peace. I thank you for your touch, Lord. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Ben's family, and Ben, I want you to listen to me. I'm in San Diego, and we heard about yesterday, and you collapsed. But I want to tell you something. God kept you alive. He revived you because you got a great purpose on this world. Therefore, as I pray right now, on that hospital bed and in that coma, you're going to feel God. His power is going to go through your body. He's going to flow through your brain. He's going to flow through the neurons of your brain. Holy Spirit, go into Ben's brain. I pray a creative miracle healing would flow. I command all those neurons to fire. I command a regeneration of his organs, a regeneration of his organs. I release over you, Ben, right now, a creative miracle healing. I command you to come out of that coma. I command you to come out of that coma. I command you right now as your friend, but as God's friend. I command you in Jesus' name to rise up, Ben. You got a full future to live. God's proud of you. It's not your time. You're going to feel tingly go all around your skull on the left-hand side and down your body. Begin to move your body right now, Ben. God is giving you new life, regenerating your cells. Ben's mother, don't believe the premature conclusion that was told you by the second doctor. The second doctor told you a premature conclusion based on things of the past. I preserved your son's arteries. The elasticity will return and you'll see blood flow and he'll breathe and he will live. Don't cave. Don't cave. God's miracle is in motion. Help your son rise right now. Go grab his hand. I command him to rise. I command him to rise. In Jesus' name. Bless you. I'll see you. You'll come see me.